Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing a topic video on top 10 comic book deaths. I'm actually very surprised I've never done this video, because it seems like such a video I would have already done like a year ago, but I haven't. But the person who recommended this was Joseph Bonner, so if you want to go check out his channel, in the description below there'll be a link for his channel. And guys, if you have any recommendations for topic videos, please tell me in the comments below, and if I answer them, that means in a couple of weeks they'll either be on DarkAvengerINC or Comic Uno, because I double dose my topic videos. For Comic Uno I have them every Thursday, and for DarkAvengerINC I have them every Sunday. But let's talk about this topic, and since it's a top 10, we're going 10 all the way to 1. So what is my number 10 top comic book death? Number 10 is Jason Todd, from Batman issue 427. This was a cool death, and some people might disagree with me, but I do think that Jason Todd was very Dick Grayson-ish before his whole death. I don't think he really was a great character before that. And then he became his own character, became his own character, defined character after his death, when he became Red Hood and all that craziness happened. And his death was so brutal. I think that's why I enjoyed his death. Well, really, that sounds so bad, but why I enjoyed his death so much is it was a brutal death, and it's like when really it hurt Batman. This is one of the big events for Batman. And then just shows exactly what the Joker can do, which we already knew the Joker could do crazy things like this, but he did crazy with Jason Todd, and I don't think all of us expected it. And also, it was a fan voting for this. Other things could have happened, but the fans voted for Jason Todd to die, and I thought that was an interesting thing with that also. So number 10 is Jason Todd, just because a lot of interesting things are going on with that. Alright. Number 9 is actually a very classic death, probably the most classic death of comics. Maybe not the most, but up there. I will go with Superman, Death of Superman, and that was in Superman issue 75. I think, again, this is just such a classic death. Who knew Superman could die? And when he did, all of us were shocked. Comic books industry was shocked. The fans are shocked. And then he came back a couple months later. But it was a really well-written death. I think the cover and the image is very classic. And that's why it is one of my favorite deaths. Because it made an impact on comic book history. And again, the images you see, it's like, that's the death of Superman. And the events that happened after the death of Superman. Having Superboy, Connor came after the death of Superman. So it's interesting. I do like Superman's death. That was number 9 for me. Number 8 is a little bit more of an unknown death and a little bit of a modern death, which is Stature, Avengers Children's Crusade issue 8. Stature was part of the Young Avengers. She was a founding member, best friend from Kate Bishop, and the daughter of Scott Lang. This whole entire time throughout this whole series, she's trying to resurrect Scott Lang, because Scott Lang was actually dead for a little while. And she is able to resurrect him, but also sacrifices herself, and I really enjoyed that because her whole basis really was about her father. Her whole character is about finding her father, you know, trying to be her father. And finally, when she went face to face, she sacrificed herself. And I think I was really shocked by that death. I remember when that happened. It was a very great miniseries, but I was shocked by that. And that was just more of a recent story I read, and I read issue by issue, waiting every 2 months for the series, because it was a 2-month series. It wasn't even every month, it was every 2 months. It was going on for a while, this series. So it was a surprising death, and that's how you write Young Avengers. And I do miss Stature. I think there is that missing part in Young Avengers without Stature. Alright, so that is number 8. Number 7 is Supergirl, Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue 7. Yeah, another very classic death, and a death that was very held by. You know, it was a death that lasted a really long time. I remember I was watching a documentary for Supergirl on the Smallville DVD, and that's when I kind of learned more about Supergirl, Supergirl's death, because I did read Supergirl previously, but I didn't know she died. And I was like, whoa, Supergirl died when this happened, and I learned that it was a 20-year gap before she returned. It was a 20-year gap. I have like all of her issues for the 2002 series, the Linda Danvers series, and I think that's why it was such a great death, because it lasted so long, and it was a really big hero, but also, I guess, an expendable hero at the same time. And when she did return, she was modernized. She was fresh. She was a different Supergirl that I think we all, I at least all did enjoy, and I liked the lead up to her revival. I guess I could do another list of top revival of superheroes, but I liked her revival going into Linda Danvers, and that Linda Danvers series was the bridge to the Supergirl we knew in the previous 2, and then, you know, that new 52 Supergirl, that's a whole different hero. But I like that. I do like that story. Alright, number 6 is a series, unless you read Spider-Girl, you probably didn't know happened. Spoiler alert, Mayhem, Spider-Girl, the end. Mayhem dies in the end, and I love, love, love her death, because Mayhem, if you don't know, I know a lot of people don't read Spider-Girl, or, you know, there's lesser people that read the series, but Mayhem was this character who was the clone of Spider-Girl. She was a hybrid of a Venom, and she didn't really have a childhood. She was born in a pod, so she didn't really know how to act well. She didn't like May because she was jealous of May. And then, in the end, May was actually supposed to die, and we see life if May died. The world would have went to crap, because Spider-Girl really saved the world at a lot of occasions, and the world really went to crap. And then Mayhem's like, alright, I gotta go back save Spider-Girl, that way the future is a bright one. And she does, and we get to see Mayhem had to take her whole life to realize what it meant to be a good friend to Spider-Girl, what it meant to be a good person. And I love that death, because, again, it took her whole life to realize that, and she sacrifices herself to save May. And then also May's reaction to Mayhem's death. Is she really dead? I don't know. Maybe if Spider-Girl continued, maybe they would have found her in the rubble, but I did enjoy that. And right now she is dead. So I like that story a lot, and I think it worked really well for her character. Number 5, you're going to be surprised this is so low on my list, but Kitty Pryde, Astonishing X-Men Giant issue. Yeah, Kitty Pryde did die for about 2 or 3 years. I remember I was so upset when Kitty Pryde died, because we didn't have any new stories with Kitty. And when she returned, it wasn't a great return either. She was like Ghost Kitty. But she did sacrifice herself, because there's a bullet going to Earth, and she's like, alright, I'm going to phase through the bullet. And of course, she has to be in space, phasing through the bullet the whole time. So she does get out of that whole situation. But why is it a little lower on my list? Probably because it wasn't the most epic death. But why is it so high on my list at the same time? Why is it even on my list? Is because she still sacrificed herself. And Kitty Pryde at that time wasn't used that often. I mean, I guess she became a little bit more popular with Josh Whedon's Astonishing X-Men, but I feel like she wasn't really used that much. I mean, that's why they did kill her off, but I did really enjoy that whole story, and I thought the sacrifice really shows, like, who this is Kitty Pryde. And every single time classes of Kitty Pryde come back, one of them dies. So I thought that was also a little funny tidbit. Alright, number 4 is our classic death. Uncle Ben. Amazing Fantasy, Astonishing Fantasy, Amazing Fantasy, I think. Amazing Fantasy, issue 15. Yeah, first issue of Spider-Man. Uncle Ben, just a classic death. You know, Spider-Man didn't stop the mugger that killed Uncle Ben. I think that's such a classic story that's imprinted our minds. We don't know how amazing it is. You know, again, it's just such a classic story, and I love that Spider-Man became this because of Uncle Ben's death. And if we didn't have Uncle Ben's death, we wouldn't have a Spider-Man. Or maybe Spider-Man would still be a wrestler. We don't know. So, Uncle Ben's death had a big impact. And, yeah, it's just a very classic death. So that is why it's on my list as number 4. Number 4. Alright, number 3 is kind of a surprising death that's up here so much, but I remember when I read this, I really loved it. Even though I didn't love the character so much, I really loved the death. And that's Cable X-Force issue 28 during Second Comic. And so this is when Cable dies for like a year, and that's it. But I really like this issue because throughout Second Coming, I think Second Coming is actually a really good story arc. Probably the most recent good Marvel story arc. You know, it was very good. I actually enjoyed Hope a lot, even though we haven't seen Hope that much. But I love the father-daughter relationship between Hope and Cable. And we got to see that a lot through Second Coming. And previously in the Cable series, we got to see that a lot too. And what I love about Cable's death is that Hope was there to kind of see it. And it was really sad, and really, I think it was actually a silent issue also when he died. And the ending is that Hope is just holding Cable's hand, you know, and that was pretty sad, and I thought it was a very gut-wrenching ending. So even though I'm not a big Cable fan, I'm not like, oh my god, I'm a humongous Cable fan, but I love that father-daughter relationship they had and how it was put on those pages during Cable's death. So I think it worked very well, and that's my number 3 favorite death. So definitely check that out. Second Coming is actually a really good X-Men story arc, and one of the most recent Marvel stories I really liked. Number 2 is Gwen Stacy, Amazing Spider-Man issue 121. I've actually gotten the question in my question and answer video, who do I like better, Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy? It's obviously Mary Jane. I'm a big Mary Jane Spider-Man fan. But I love the legacy of Gwen Stacy, because we always have these stories of first love. And I think Gwen Stacy definitely was Spider-Man's first love. Maybe not true love, still think Mary Jane and Spider-Man take that, but definitely first love. And the way she does die is another iconic scene where the Green Goblin captures her, and it could have been a really cool save. It's like, oh, Spider-Man goes down, saves her, and that's it. But he makes a mistake. He doesn't think about physics, which is a smart guy. He doesn't think about physics. He uses his web shooters, and Gwen's neck snaps, and she dies. And this is the love of his life, and the Green Goblin. I think that's the time where we actually saw Green Goblin as his true arch nemesis. And that's why I enjoyed it. You know, it was such an iconic scene, and it made sense. You know, just a lot of things going on there. And it's referenced a lot, and I enjoyed it. So that's my number 2. But what is number 1? Is Ultimate Peter. Yeah. Ultimate Spider-Man issue 160. I love this issue. This is the last issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, and this is actually stayed. This is a death that stayed. In the Ultimate Universe, all deaths stay, and that's one of the best things about the Ultimate Universe. Because they can do that. Of course, like if Spider-Man died, which we've seen Spider-Man die, we don't want to make him stay dead. But with the Ultimate Universe, it's fine, because it's another universe, and you could do stories like that. And I think he just died in such a great way, and then he walks off with Uncle Ben. You know, and he saves his aunt, you know, his friends, and when he does that, you know, we see who Peter is. He dies Peter. And then we get a great story with Miles, and I'm not angry with that. Like, it's more of a second generation thing. Like, not anyone could be Spider-Man, but showing that Peter could not, you know, doesn't have to be the only Spider-Man. And to have him have such a great ending, you know, there's deaths where it's just like, really, he just died? I didn't even see that. Like Professor X, I'm going to say, that was a recent death. It's like, whoa, wait, he died just now? I didn't even realize that. They do it so quickly, and I think with Ultimate Spider-Man, they took their time and made it a really good death, and a really good story at the same time. We knew it was coming, but some people were like, oh, maybe it's just like a trick. But this death has stayed for a while, and I really hope it does stay for a while, and maybe forever. I think Miles was a very good replacement. Also, so many questions after the death of Spider-Man. We had who's going to be his replacement, someone we know, and all these crazy speculations. And then end up still having a really cool universe after. So that is my number 1. If you haven't read Ultimate Spider-Man or The Death of Spider-Man, I totally recommend it. It's one of my favorite story arcs of all time. And I remember reading it issue by issue, being a wonderful story arc. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Please tell me your favorite deaths in the comments below. And this is Comic Uno, guys. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter for Comic Uno and the rant situations. And don't forget to like my Facebook page. And I'll see you guys later.